A lot of kids resent their parents, and I think I've figured out why. In this video, I'm going to share what I've learned that has completely changed the way I view my job as a parent. So a lot of the time, I feel like I'm rushing my daughter along, trying to get her to do the next thing that we've got to do. You got to eat. You got to put your clothes on. It's time to head upstairs for your nap. I feel like I'm applying this constant pressure towards our relationship because of all the things that are necessary for us to do. But something about the whole thing felt off, so I decided to do some research. What I learned is that doing my typical role as a dad, like putting clothes on my daughter, feeding her, and getting her to bed on time, is really only half of the job that I have as a parent, and that I was neglecting the other half, which is the half that, if left neglected, leads to kids harboring that resentment towards their parents. I discovered this insight from this book. It's called A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. And this has been the book that has overall been the most helpful in my life. So I'm going to share what I learned about parenting from this book, and I will post the full excerpt down in the description below if you want to read it. All right, this is going to sound a little weird, but you know how we call ourselves human beings, right? Well, it turns out that our job as parents is packed inside of those two little words. And so let's unpack this one word at a time, and let's start with the first word, human. Human refers to our role as a human parent. For example, you got to feed your kids, help them get to sleep, put their clothes on, give them a bath. You got to enroll them in music class and shit like that. Now, this is the part of the job that I know well, and I used to think that as long as I was doing all the doings, then I was fulfilling my role as a father. But as time went on, I got the intuition that there was something else that I was not bringing to the table that was vitally important to my relationship with my daughter. So in order to understand what that is, let's move on to the second word in that term, human being, which is being. Now, if this part is a little weird or hard to understand, it totally was for me too, so don't worry. But being refers to the state of being that we are in when we are with our children. For example, if I'm sitting on the floor and playing with my daughter, can I be there as a still, alert presence for her? Can I just observe her and want nothing else other than for her to be exactly the way she is, not wanting anything from her, not judging her actions, and really dropping that role that I have as her father and she my daughter, and just being together as two human beings. And sometimes I can't. I'm either checking my phone to get another dopamine drip, checking my watch to see what time it is and when we have to go upstairs for nap. But here's what I've learned from A New Earth. Children have a deep longing for their parents to be there for them more than just a role. And even if the parent is playing that role perfectly, the child will still detect that something is missing. If the parent only focuses on the human side, but neglects the being side, then the child will feel as if the relationship is unfulfilled. And all this happens unconsciously. They don't realize they're doing it, but it leads to a buildup of pain in the child, which ultimately expresses itself as resentment toward the parents. Why don't you recognize me? Is what that resentment seems to say. Now, that was a little confusing for me when I first heard it. So here's another way to explain it. Our children want our attention, but not attention that's related to doing or evaluating. If you've ever sat there and looked out at the ocean and you're just alert and still and you're just taking in the beauty without any labeling or judging or wanting to change anything about that moment, that is the same type of attention that your child craves, and you already know how to give it. Our children want to be recognized, but not just on the level of form, but beyond that, on the level of being. This is where true love originates from, and this is what is meant by the saying, to love is to recognize yourself in another. Now, if you're watching this and you're thinking, I'm a shitty parent, all I ever do is play my parental role, that's exactly how I felt too. But then I realized I do have plenty of moments where I'm fully present with my daughter and I'm not just playing a role. Like there was this one time I took my daughter out to dinner and then we went to the park to play. After that, I was carrying her back to the car. We have this little thing we do where I say, I love you, like this, and I go, and kiss her neck. It tickles and she laughs really hard. And we just had this moment where we just connected with each other, and it was like the deepest connection I've ever felt for a human being. And I just felt like I knew what was truly important in the world. You know, it almost kind of brought me to tears. But there's also plenty of smaller, less dramatic moments where she and I connect with each other throughout the day. And I'm sure the same thing happens already between you and your children. So one of my favorite quotes from the excerpt in A New Earth is that mastery of life is not a question of control, but of finding a balance between human and being. So we undoubtedly have to continue our role as human parents. Like, we have to watch the clock, we have to get them in the bath, we have to make that mac and cheese. But with this new awareness, we can raise the quality of the attention that we bring to all of those moments. Like the next time we give our kid a bath, we can just intentionally take a moment to be there with them, fully present, not wanting to rush them along to the next thing, and just see what happens. And the more of those moments we interject, the more we balance the scales between human and being. Now here's the last big thing I realized. My daughter is not the only one who wants this type of attention from me. So does my wife, my family, my friends, even the dogs. In fact, every living thing on earth wants our presence, wants our pure attention. And what if this is the greatest gift that we have to give to life? So this is the journey that I'm on, trying to get better at this stuff. I'm very far from perfect, but if this has resonated with you in any way, please drop a comment down below. And as a side note, I've personally noticed that it is really hard for me to be the present human being that I want to be if I do not get enough sleep. So I made this video on 8 ways to get 8 hours of sleep every night so that you can show up with a fully charged battery to be that badass human being that I know you are.